Welcome to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss With Us. Darce on the ones and twos. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This was a good week.
Really? Why? It rained a lot.
Well, I don't know. It was a much better week for me. I've said this, but I think we get probably more out of our episodes than maybe anybody else. And with the love languages one, I felt like it prompted some good conversation, and we kind of rearranged our life a little bit.
All right, fair. You're right. I
And
didn't know
our
that was
routine
love
was
languages.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, we just talked about like how we could better serve each other a little bit.
I told everyone out there this was going to be one of the most important episodes, and I flagged that for myself. And normally I don't listen, and I actually did go back and listen to this one. So I will.
Oh, look at you.
I took my own advice here. And look, see? Hey, everyone, my wife just said we had a better week. So
We did.
It works.
We did, yeah. And the congestion is a little more under control.
I think that is what made you say you have a good week. But
It probably is. I'm one of those people that as soon as I start feeling bad, I'm like,
it's the
world
worst.
is doom.
We were doom and gloom because you were sick, and that was not good for us.
Yeah, but no, I think it was a good week.
Rocking it out. Now, not everything went according to plan.
That's true. We were going to be doing a part 2 on love languages with some guests this weekend. Had some of it lined out, and some of it we were figuring out on the fly. And finally, we just realized, you know what? We run this, and this is too tough right now.
This isn't like a homework assignment.
Yeah.
There's no due date. We can do it whenever we want.
I did say that we reserved the right to do this.
Yes,
and
we always say
we
that.
needed to pull this card. So, but it's because I think we have some good guests lined up, and I wanted to accommodate them better.
Yeah, and it was starting to just get hard to make it all work. Like we could have forced it,
Yeah.
and
Well, it was Mayfest weekend.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on.
a lot
for
of
everybody.
rain, a lot of stuff going on, and it got to the point where it was like, why fight with this?
Yeah.
And you know what? I stepped up and I was like, I'm the world's best at pivoting. I have an idea.
You are.
Yeah. And I just said, stay with me, dear. Guess what this next weekend is?
Mother's Day.
Yeah. It's the stars just aligned. And I was like, you know what? We were originally going to do a Mother's Day episode. It wasn't lost on us, but we were going to do it after Mother's Day, the week after. But I was like, you know what? This will
This
just
does
maybe work better. Yeah, we'll just do it
builds up.
before.
Builds up to Mother's Day.
So, AKA, I'm just going to like sit back here and you just talk for like 40 minutes or so, and I think we'll be good.
Not going to happen.
I'll go get my favorite beverage and just sit back, relax, and
Okay.
see what happens.
No.
No, but for real, motherhood, Mother's Day.
We're going to talk about moms. And
Yes.
the impact that moms have.
Yes, very important role. Just in life, no life can begin without a mom. I mean, I guess you could say that without a dad too, but moms are pivotal.
Yes. And when I started thinking about just like sketching out some notes on this,
I have no notes. I'm not a mom.
shocker. I was thinking about how growing up, and then especially as you get like in these pre-motherhood years, everybody's like, oh, or you just hear this in general, motherhood is like the most difficult but most rewarding
But isn't
experience. And man, it is so true. I think that, again, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how labor and delivery of your child is very much like a microcosm for motherhood.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, some people prepare, as much as they can ahead of time. Some people just go into it like, all right, let's just do this. and I don't know, it just doesn't even matter. You can do all the preparation. You can have all these thoughts on how it's going to
All
go.
the I's dotted, T's crossed, so you
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, so you think. And not that those things aren't good and important and don't help, but nothing prepares you for labor and delivery of your
I
first kid.
bet.
You just can't, like you just can't know it until you do it. Same thing with motherhood. Like, you can read all the books, you can follow all the Instagram moms.
You did all that.
Not about motherhood,
Oh, well,
about
yeah.
childbirth, maybe, because I'm kind of a data person. But,
Yeah.
um, and, do think it served me well, anyways. But nothing really prepares you for the real thing, and nothing really prepares you for motherhood either.
Yeah. All right. So let's start
Yeah.
right there.
Okay.
I I actually did show prep in my mind a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah. Shout out me. So one of the first things I was thinking, um, I I assume there's almost like, so it's a combination of we're older now than we were when we first became parents, but um, just how has your world and almost like your complete genetic makeup changed from being, you know, Darcy to
Mm-hmm.
now mom?
Um, there's a
Like
lot to unpack
even
there.
from the
Yeah.
sense of like being pregnant, because I would say like so the way I was thinking about this is like when you get married, two individuals become one, right?
Right.
Well, I also think there's almost like a very similar thing that happens, especially for a woman. You can say this for dads too, but it is different because when you're
Yeah.
pregnant, I didn't really feel anything until we were getting close to the end, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of is what it is. And you just, your body's literally going through changes physically
Yeah.
and, inside and
Your organs
there you go.
literally
Yeah, or moving, right?
shift around and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's why I think that
and I
I
just think
guess
you're a whole new person now.
yeah, and I said like labor and delivery is like a microcosm of motherhood, but pregnancy included too because
Yeah.
everything just starts to shift immediately.
And your hormones and all of that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on
A
there
little
for
bit.
sure. But yeah, from Darcy to mom, I always knew I wanted to have a family and like wanted to be a mom.
Hmm.
But like I just said, you just nothing prepares you for how much your world shifts.
Yeah.
Um,
Fairy tale to
and
reality there.
yeah, yeah, and I think for me too, like I'm a very like independent driven person, and
That's what I said last week.
yeah, that's true. Um, and that's all good, but then when you get married again, two become one, so you've got somebody else that you're worrying about, but
Hmm.
they are also perfectly capable of worrying about
Yes.
themselves too.
Yes.
And having a little baby, a little child, like they are who's completely dependent on you,
Yeah.
it's a very heavy weight.
And they're more dependent on you than
Yes, that's
me
true
as
in the
dad. That's the
beginning.
other thing. Like,
Yeah, no, that's true from
I'm
the
just
very
window
beginning.
dressing for a while.
Yeah, we always joke that like Brian doesn't really he doesn't really like, I don't know, truly bond with the kids until they're probably what, 6 months old or so.
Maybe older than that. I don't know.
Just because they are so literally dependent on me.
Yeah.
Up through that stage, and I don't know, you get more incorporated later. But so yes, um, it is such a heavy weight. Sounds like a very negative connotation, um, but I don't know how else to say it. It is such a responsibility, and I've said before, like I think that's where a lot of postpartum
Hmm.
stuff comes from. Is
Yeah.
not only are your hormones just like shifting around all over the place, trying to get back under control, but I think it's also just like here is this literal child that is now completely dependent on you, and nothing prepares for no puppy sitting,
Yeah.
dog raising or whatever. We're
Raising a
big dog
plant.
people. Yeah, nothing prepares you for that until you're in it, and then you're just doing it.
So think back to when we got pregnant the first time.
Hmm.
Like how how did your how do you feel like you changed like when we found out we were pregnant? Like did you feel any different like and I'm not even just talking about the physical stuff like did you I don't know, just talk about that.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that I was working at the time, and I
And we were
still am.
just married.
Yeah, we were just married. But then like there's all these things that are just immediately out of your control,
Mhm.
like, morning sickness and stuff like that, that you're
Right.
just having to right off the bat start juggling along with everything else that you're doing. And so just very quickly there's it's not just you anymore. You're not in Kansas anymore.
Did you how quickly did you because this is a serious thing. I don't want it to sound like I'm cold or anything. Like I instantly bonded as soon as we birthed the kids,
Yeah.
right? But I didn't have the same level of attachment because they didn't grow inside me and they weren't
Yeah.
dependent on
Well, no,
me.
I mean, I remember having thoughts. I've had thoughts with each one about like even as uncomfortable as you are towards the end, it's like, man, this is pretty soon you're not gonna just be hanging out with me all the time.
I'm gonna have to feed you in a literal sense instead of just eating.
Yeah. But no, it shifts everything right off the bat, I feel like. Um, but I mean, there's more coming. Like
Yeah.
when you uh bring the kid in onto this side, um, it just keeps changing from there. Everything just continues to change your perspective, your priorities first and foremost,
Hmm.
I feel like. Um, I was and still am very driven in the workplace and stuff, but like
Hmm.
pre kids and family, like that was what I put all my energy towards.
Yeah.
And now it's more of a means to an end,
Hmm.
Um, jobs, obviously.
Yeah.
um, so I feel like everything kind of changes right off the bat.
Nice. Yeah. I kind of had a similar sense as like being a dad. It with the workplace being different. It's not quite means to an end for me, but
Hmm.
whereas like before having kids, any any job, any amount of hours, like you said, that's almost like all your energies too,
Yeah.
because you know your partner's going to support you
Hmm.
even if you're working longer hours or doing whatever. But now it's like if if I got offered like another job, but it was going to take away something that I thought was good for the kids, like,
Hmm.
well, I probably wouldn't do it. And that's
Yeah.
funny. Like, even if it led to like more money
Yeah.
or more status or something, like, I would literally have to weigh it. Whereas it's just funny. Like, I can still remember, like, that would never cross my mind
Right.
before.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about pregnancy because I've never done
You
it.
were there.
It's just a side character.
No, some people really enjoy being pregnant, and I definitely.
I don't think you had it as bad as some people do.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, I mean, some people are
And we
completely
were
miserable
smart.
the
I
whole
think
time.
only 1 out of 3 were you like real pregnant over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
We joked about
Gotta
that.
gotta time that
Yeah.
out.
Important if
Very
you haven't had
important.
kids yet.
Something to consider. Um, what were we saying?
So tell me about pregnancy.
Oh, okay, pregnancy. Yeah. Some people really enjoy being pregnant. I would not file myself under that.
Hmm.
I definitely appreciate the blessing of being pregnant. However, the actual
Day to day.
day to day, hmm, it it's tough.
So kind of pregnancy is pregnancy, but kind of leading into having kids, and we'll start with the old joke everyone always says, like it's so much pain. They
Yeah.
literally try to make belts for men to try to figure out what it's like. I think like a paper cut could be close, maybe, but
Okay.
but they always say like you almost instantly forget everything you went through. Do you remember like each birth, or,
I
or does it kind of, do you mentally like block it out?
Well, okay. So for one thing, I think it's important to note that all of our labors and deliveries have been very quick.
Very intense, but very
Very
quick.
intense and very quick. And so I don't know. I wouldn't say that well, maybe I did instantly forget because I do remember with June, who's our first. I remember thinking, in fact, we like debriefed afterwards
Yeah.
because obviously with your first one, it's like wild.
Yeah. What just
But
happened?
yeah, but
I've got to write this in the baby book.
but I remember like quote unquote debriefing in the hospital, which this is so us too, and like giving you notes for next time. Like, this
Yeah.
is what I would
This is
do
what you did
differently.
good. This is what you did bad.
Well, not just you, me too. I
Yeah.
remember saying like, this is what I would do differently next time. And so I guess to your point, like I was already like, okay, let's. There will be a next time. I guess is where my head was at.
Here's one I've never asked you,
Hmm.
thinking about that. So it's widely known, like this is going to be the most pain you probably ever go through in your life.
Hmm.
Um, did that, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, but you've already got another life depending on you.
Hmm.
So I think maybe that helps ease the blow. But like, did that like scare you to get pregnant? Like, I always wonder this for girls. Like, oh, I always wanted to be a mom, always, because like I always wanted to be a dad, and that's pretty easy. There's not a whole lot
It
of
never
things going
scared
into it.
me. It was never a thought like before we got pregnant, as something that would deter me at
But even
all.
as like the days leading up, like were you? And I don't even mean nervous, because nervous is natural because
Oh yeah, definitely
you're about to
nervous,
be a parent. But
anxious kind of.
like, was there any like fear of, I have no idea what I'm going
Oh
into here,
yeah, I think
and fear of like just the delivery in general?
I think especially with the first one, you can't help but have some kind of fear because it is literally like the fear of the unknown. You just don't know. Even if you've done all this research, you just don't know what's going to happen. There's so many additional factors beyond just what you can do or handle and stuff.
Hmm.
So yes, I think there's definitely fear going into it. But what I always tried to lean back on is like for thousands, literally thousands of
Yeah,
years,
that's
this
true.
has been
People
a
have done
thing.
this.
Yeah. So it may not be a pleasant experience, but you just do it, which is kind of also like part of my motherhood motto whenever I get, because obviously with our young boys close in age, I always get the comment from anybody, literally.
Right.
It happened like 3 times this weekend when we were out in Houston, where it's like, oh, your hands are so full. How do you do it? I don't know how you do it, and all this stuff. And it's like, well, you just do. You just do it.
I do think that's like a misconception too. Is like, oh, you have 3 kids. I will argue with anyone that once you get past 2, it's all gravy.
Yeah.
Like 2, 3. I
The
would imagine
transition
4. Like,
from 0 to 1 is obviously big, right? Like,
yeah.
because you have no idea what you're doing. From 1 to 2 is still big too, because,
Well, I remember that was when we had to like one on one, like, and it kind of
yeah,
one kid. You and I could still do everything together.
yes. And I
Two
think
kids, we had
that's
to split things up.
Yes, and it's also like emotionally difficult because you've both been focused on this one child and now you have this second, and
And
so
yeah, you have the
you
guilt of
have the
like,
guilt
are
of like,
we?
oh, am I balancing things
Yeah,
out? Am I
I think 2 was harder than 3 for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Going from 1 to 2, and 1 to 2 maybe was even harder in some ways than going from 0 to 1. But anyway, 2 to 3, it's a breeze.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever go to 4, but I'm like, oh, 4's got to just be cake. And it's not literally, but it's just, I think everyone, and especially it makes me laugh because it
Well, I
wasn't
think
that
to
long
your
ago.
point,
People had like 5 and 6 kids, and now we
yeah,
have 3, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
yeah. Well, but I think to your point about fear, like fear is what is kind of difficult in those transitions from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2,
Right?
because it's just the unknown and like, how are we going to figure this out and how are we going to do that? By the time you're going from 2 to 3, it's like, well, we'll just figure it out. Like, we
Yeah,
will just do it. That is my motto is like, how do you do this? Well, you just do it.
yeah.
Yeah. Does some big corporation say that or anything, or is that just me? Should I coin it?
We
um,
probably have to pay them now.
yeah. Okay. Nobody turn us
Yeah.
in.
Copyright infringement.
Yeah. Um.
All right, so tell me about like you said, before you're all focused on career and individual. And look, some of this, and we had a unique journey in that we didn't really live the married life that long. Like by the time we got married, it was
Yeah.
just like, boom, let's have kids. And we found out, boom, that just happened. So, um,
For us.
yeah. So, yeah, literally. So, how, because we had some tough times when we had the first one. Like you didn't even have a full normal time off from work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was tough because and I did that to myself.
Yeah, you did.
I did that to myself. I did a much shorter maternity leave than I should have
I
with
think
our
you took like
first.
2 weeks.
Yeah, basically. Um but I think, it
You
was
still worked from home
yes,
primarily, so but
exactly.
you were still trying to balance work
I was
and
trying to dive back into it way too quickly because I think well, in my mind anyways, I was just you just want to get back to
a
what
normal
your
routine.
normal is because you want to make sure you can do it, I think.
Makes sense.
And so it's like, well, let's just start it
Yeah,
now
let's
so I can
quit
start
putting it
figuring
off.
it
Let's
out.
just
Yeah.
see how this goes.
Yeah. So yeah, I dove back into it way too quick in hindsight, but I mean, all things considered, it worked out fine. But for our next one, I I did take a little bit
Yeah,
longer.
rightfully so.
Yeah. And I think also because you realize after having the first, it's like, okay, well, this is precious time. I'm gonna soak this in. I definitely had more of that kind of headspace with the second than I did with June. Unfortunately, sorry, June. He got plenty of one focus.
Yes, he
And
still
still
does.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of demanding in that way, but yes. Um but I think another thing that I've learned is like everything is a phase too. That's another thing I would say about motherhood and parenthood in
Yeah,
general.
we talk about seasons and phases all the time, and that
Yes.
was hard with the first because you don't know any of these things. And we've
Yes.
even talked to like family and friends
Mhm.
when they've had kids because you just once you go through it once, you
Yeah.
kind of figure it out. But it's like whenever your
Whenever you're in the
back's up
throes
against
of
the
it in
wall, it's
the
like
yeah, in the beginning.
this too shall pass.
Yeah, and so I just said like my motto is you just do it, and you just get through it and stuff. But um, another thing that like I've said to other moms who are just getting started with it, I guess, is like just try to realize that everything is a phase. With the newborns, figuring out what swaddle they're gonna like and all those things,
Right.
it all shifts and it all shifts so quickly. You just have to kind of roll with it.
By the time you figure out the swaddle, they don't even want it anymore. So
Exactly, exactly.
doesn't
And
really
so
matter.
everything is a phase. If they are, you know, waking you up at all times of the night still, just remember it really is a phase. It may be longer
For
than you
some and
like it.
others.
Yeah, but it is all a phase and you will, before you know it, you look back and you're like, "Oh yeah, remember that time?" And it's like that with everything, with their
It's funny
attitudes.
because it almost seems like it's in like 2 week increments, especially when they're young, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we recently had it. Like,
Yeah.
part of it was because we were sick, but it's like 1 week. All it takes is one kid to be off the rails, and it's just like the house is ready to fall down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but now it's like, all right, you just gotta suffer through. We'll make it to the other side.
Yeah. But it's all a phase, whether it's maybe you're in like a sickness phase. Well, you will get through it. Maybe you're in like a not sleeping very much phase. It will,
Tell us how that ends.
yeah, it will. it will improve. Their attitudes, like
Yeah.
when they start to really, I don't know if it's like twos or threes is worse, but I don't know when they start giving you some attitude or you're having a really hard time or like, for us, we have had a couple children that tend to be particular and you're just like fighting with them about some certain thing. It is all a phase. If your nighttime routine is suddenly an hour long and there's no getting around it, that is all a phase too. It is all a phase.
Yeah, I try to focus on that stuff too. Not that we don't lose our cool every now and then, but
Yes. And
sometimes I'm like, you know what? I will look back on this and either A, laugh that we did it, or B, miss it once we don't do it anymore,
Right.
because there are already things that,
Yeah.
Fortunately we have three, all boys, all same
Mm-hmm.
kind of dispositions. So what we've done with one, even when they're done with it, it's like, okay, now we do this with the next.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to say that you can't and shouldn't, I don't know, try to redirect or try something new, to hopefully make it a better phase. But if you are in the thick of it and don't know what to do, it is all a phase. You will get through it. So that's another little nugget.
Very nice.
And did I already say this? Capacity comes as you need it.
Yeah, you were kind of, I think we went on a
I
tangent.
heard that. I heard that very early on. I don't know if we just had one or maybe had two at the time, but I just remember hearing from like a mom of multiples, hearing the advice that like capacity comes as you need it. So, and it kind of is all this same conversation, right? Like you just do it. You just figure it out.
Well, and I think that's kind of like from the beginning, one of the most amazing things about women in general is the same thing with being pregnant is,
Oh yeah, that's true.
you go from
We
your body grows, your organ shifts, like you just figure it out. It just
yeah. Well, and not only that, like literally your body
grows to a different capacity.
Well, yes, and true. But I was gonna say like grows its own like little organ to feed the baby. Like
Yeah.
it just happens. You just grow. Capacity comes as you need it. So if you're freaked out about to go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 4 to 5, whatever.
Unless you're having like triplets or something, we can't help you then.
Yeah, then
I don't know
good
how you
luck.
do that.
No. You just do it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I guess the capacity's still there, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, I can't
I'm not willing to
personally
speak on that.
it. No, but capacity comes, but that also doesn't mean that you don't experience little phases of burnout too. I mean, I just feel like I just got out of a little phase of burnout and needing to kind of shift things around and figure out a better way.
Well, and so now we've kind of gone through the weeds of how it is having a kid, but we have three on the ground, and you are still primarily working from home. And how is it balancing work and motherhood, and you are at home, which I think is unique for a lot of people. They don't get to do that. So you're wearing like so many hats right now.
Yes. And it's not just me. This is something that I feel like is more so on motherhood than it is on
I think
fatherhood.
just women are better
Yes.
at that.
Well, maybe, but it is so difficult to juggle everything and to feel like you're doing any of it well. And I think that's where you hear like about mom guilt and all this stuff. And it is just very true these days that motherhood looks so differently
Yeah.
than it used to, and looks so differently for everybody. I mean, there's so many people that are stay-at-home moms, people that are like me and basically working from home
Hybrid
moms.
working.
Yeah, hybrid, yeah. And then people that that are out in the workplace and momming. And there's also so it's so easy to fall into mom guilt. Am I doing it right? And all these things.
And I think the internet can work against you then, too.
Yeah, for sure. And then compiling on top of that is all these ways on how we should be parenting.
Yeah,
There's
exactly. That's what I'm
a
saying.
lot
The internet
of
can work
opinions.
against you now.
There's a lot of opinions out there on what the right way to parent and discipline and, you know, what what your raising of your children should look like. There are so many. It's like diets. Everybody is coining like the new way to raise your kids and how
Well,
we
if you
should
look
all
at
be doing it.
society, I don't think it's working. So
Fair point.
go back to the old way.
Yeah, and then just kind of at its core, a big part of parenting. Obviously, we're here to love and direct, and directing usually entails some discipline. And
Yeah.
if there's any thoughts on parenting, there's 1,000 different thoughts on. Well, there's more than that. There's infinity, as June would say. Thoughts on how we should be disciplining or not disciplining, and it is so tough. And then you roll all this up, and we're supposed to be juggling all of this and trying to do it well. And I think one of the most difficult things about the way that we are doing it is, like I'm so blessed to get to have they go to school, but then part of the day I have them with me too, and it's a smaller part of the day, but there's a part of the day where typically they are with me, and maybe we have the nanny, our nanny around, and maybe we don't, but I'm still trying to work is the point.
Yeah.
While they are in the house, maybe they're with her, or maybe she's not there. It just depends. And that is so it is like the most. I realize that I'm not a bad parent when I'm on the weekend and I'm like focused. I can focus on just them, and I'm like, oh, I'm not half bad at this. But man, during the week, sometimes when I'm trying to juggle it all, I feel like I'm just failing miserably. And overall, I don't think that I am, but in those
You're not.
moments, where it's like I have to take this phone call and you guys have to be quiet, or I have to go in here. It is so I don't even want to think about it anymore. It's difficult.
Do you need a drink?
I do now that we're talking about it. So there is just
Some bad memories coming up here.
well, it's not even bad because
kidding.
sometimes it really is very beautiful to get
Yes.
to. In fact, a lot of the time it is very beautiful to get to, I'm working in my office or whatever, and I can hear them playing
Yeah.
in the other room. So such a blessing. But there's a lot of, it's much more than what you might see on the surface if you were to crack open the door of our house. It's a lot.
I get the phone calls, so I know.
Yeah.
That never fails.
Yeah. But it's just a lot that obviously there are definitely examples of dads who are in these same scenarios too, especially nowadays where dads are Mr. Mom in it and working and stuff. So it happens for y'all too. But I don't know. I can only speak to to what I know, and that part of motherhood is hard. And I'm sure, like, I can definitely see, from a stay-at-home mom's perspective, where maybe you don't have the outside distraction of work and stuff, but at the same time, like, your kids are your job, and they are more than a full-time job. And then you're also, like, probably lacking other adult
Well, yeah.
conversation and stuff. So, and we don't even, because I can't even really speak on that because I haven't done it. So I don't even want to get in those weeds.
Yeah.
But my point is, it is tough.
No, and I think that's where, like, you see all these things these days of, like, hey, you're just want to let you know you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I do think that's important, to maybe let any mom out there,
Yes.
even your own.
Yes.
But I do think, God created women with a better ability to juggle multiple things at a time that most men, and obviously this is stereotyping, but most men, I can speak for myself, are very one item at a time driven, whereas it is like you can get more done in like 30 minutes than I can just like get my desk like situated to start something. And you've already like blown through stuff because you're very good at like just juggling, and I got 30 minutes here. And I do think no matter what situation you're in as a mom, it's important to remember that mom hat comes first. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's so hard with today. I mean, economically, it's really difficult to make it on just a single income household.
Yeah.
Even if people are trying to make like passive income and stuff like that, it's just hard to make it off one anymore.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't. There's definitely sacrifices all of us could make if that's the choice you wanted to take. And if you are, hats off to you, honestly. But
But I do think that I don't know. I think that moms are called to that sacrifice more so than dads.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
but even if you're even if you are like you're working, and I know sometimes you get stressed out. We talk about it,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, it's just like you gotta put the mom hat on first, and I think that's what makes it difficult from time to time. And but if you're, I guess my point is, if you're doing that, you're not wrong,
Yeah.
no matter what. That's kind of my point. Is
Yeah.
you only get to do this once,
Right.
so
Right. And yeah, I think what you're saying is kind of uh I think that God called women to motherhood, and there are um, multiple ways that that looks, whether it's spiritual motherhood, obviously physical motherhood, um, but I think that that's the calling that God put on women's life,
well,
and
I
in
always will go a little biblically right now, and just to start off, even with Eve. So I always find it interesting. God created Adam first,
Mhm.
and then made Eve out of the rib of Adam
Mhm.
as a companion. And so I feel like some people try to act like Eve's like a secondary character in
Mhm.
the story. Um, and in reality, it's kind of interesting. Like God made Adam first, and
Mhm.
then even if you want to take more of the male authority role of like, well, Eve just came out of Adam, but look at how special God made Eve out of that.
Yeah.
Like Eve's,
Well, and out of need for Adam.
yeah, but yes, but
Mhm.
like Adam, men weren't going to ever, birth children and stuff. Like I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like all the like there are so many special things that
Yes.
women get to do that men don't get to experience.
Right.
And so just
Some
in
of them more painful than others. But yes.
and then that always, so that's one example for me biblically. But my biggest one we were talking about is the wedding at Cana.
Yes.
I
Talking
have
about like the impact that mothers have.
Yeah, and I think one of the best examples in the Bible is Mary,
Yeah.
mother of Jesus, if you didn't know. So, but that wedding at Cana, and if I'll give one little shout out here, if you haven't watched The Chosen,
Oh yeah.
I think it's a really I don't know how accurate it is. They probably took some liberties with some stuff, but
For sure.
it gives you a different, it kind of lets your imagination roam a little bit
Yeah.
on how things might have looked, and kind of helps you visualize text a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And before watching that show, I had still always thought this, but they
Right.
do something cool with the wedding at Cana, and the point is Jesus had to be this remarkable child all the way through, right?
Yes.
Probably never even cried at night. I don't know, but obviously, it's documented at a very early age and stuff when he's lost and at the temple. Well,
Yeah.
so that must have been, as I kid about him not crying at night, maybe, but it would also be one of the worst jobs to have parenting, because you're parenting Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and just the amount of pressure that would come with that. And imagine like
How
our kids
humbling.
think they have all the answers, and think of how it would be if your kid actually had all the answers
Yeah.
and was smarter than you at every turn, and just so wise and everything.
Yes.
But she's still his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And the wedding at Cana, for those of you who don't know, that was where, so Jesus had kind of,
He had been teaching.
and he had been getting his crew together, so to speak.
His followers.
But he had not actually started down the path that would lead to his ultimate crucifixion. And
had not performed any miracles, is what you're saying. Yes.
And that is where he performed his first public miracle.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Public
Yeah,
miracle.
it was the public ministry at that
sorry.
point. So, well, anyways, so it's somewhat, the reason it always piqued my interest was it kind of almost seems like a throwaway line at first. So basically the story there is they were running out of wine and didn't know what to do. And Mary comes up to Jesus and tells him this. And at first he says, because it's written really weird, he's like, "Why would you bother me with this woman?" or something like that.
Yes.
But the second line is always what gets me. He says that to her, and then she just immediately says, like, "Just do whatever he tells you." To the waiters, like she just dismisses what he says and is like, "Do whatever he tells you." And so, anyways, I've always thought that was cool, and almost like how, you know, the mama bird has to push the baby bird out of the nest a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm not saying this is apples to apples, but if you watch The Chosen, I do think they did a good job of showing this here. Is they have a moment where they're looking at each other.
Yes.
And it's like a flashback for Mary seeing him raised all through his life. And, you know, she still sees him as a baby, and yet she knows he needs this nudge. And kind of like the way they portray Jesus looking at her is like, like he was enjoying the wedding and like, I got to do this now. Because they both know, know how it ends.
Yes.
And I just do think like that is kind of, in a nutshell, what motherhood is. Like that bond you have with your kids. Like, I think you have a better intuition on what they might need. Not that I'm not important, but there's just a different level with a mom with their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is why, you know, we've talked a lot about how, like, what I said in the beginning, like, motherhood is one of the most difficult. We've hit a lot on the most difficult part, but
I was going to say, maybe we should get to some positive.
I know, but also rewarding experiences, being a mother. And it's where, like, motherhood is not like a phase. It is like your full-blown calling. It never ends. And so for Jesus, because Jesus was grown at this point, like, and it just never ends. And I think one of the things that has been on our minds, I know, because we talk about it fairly often over the last several years, is you know, honoring our parents. Because I think as you become a parent yourself, you kind of,
it gives you a different level of appreciation then.
Yes, a different level of appreciation, and you can you look back on your own memories a little differently, I think, because you can see, you just have more perspective.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, here's Jesus, and he basically honors his mother's request here.
And she had the intuition and insight of like, he needs this right now. Yeah.
So it just shows you the impact. And those are the rewarding times that's the rewarding side of it, I think, that we have as mothers, and it coexists. It's not like you know, it's difficult and then rewarding. It all coexists. It's difficult and rewarding all at the same time. But yeah, like, you can go through all these different examples that are going to sound corny, but like, you know, like when your kid falls asleep on your chest, you know, or when they come to you because you're their security, you know, if they've hurt themselves or whatever. You're the nurturer, you know, and there is something also beautiful about caretaking for them. It can also get very monotonous and
Yep.
tough, when they're fighting all aspects of it. It seems like that's another phase when they don't eat. Yeah, that's super stressful.
We're there.
Yeah, well, we've been there, I think, on and off since they've
Well, with all three of them.
been born. But just also realizing, I know, like, even in like the breastfeeding journey, just realizing the obvious impact, but like, I don't know, that whole bonding
Yeah.
and their dependence on you, it is all very rewarding. And, I always think, I don't know, I think about the boys, like I see them now, I see them when they were babies, and I also project forward to hopefully when they're coming back around, gathering at our table
Right.
and they're full grown human beings too. And I don't know, family, it's corny, but family is everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up, what's your favorite thing about being a mom?
Oh Lord, you put me on the spot.
Hey,
I
man, you
usually
got
do that
me.
to
Exactly.
you, I feel
Well,
like.
had to hold one back.
Favorite thing about being a mom.
Or motherhood in general. Whatever.
Okay, well, I left. I'll tie it up with this thought that I had written down that I didn't get to, because it's the favorite thing, the coolest thing, and also like the heaviest thing ever.
All right.
And this is really parenthood. It's not maybe necessarily just motherhood, but we are God to them in the beginning.
Yeah, no, we've talked about that.
And yeah, we're God to them. And that is, I remember hearing that and being like, oh my gosh, that's true. They don't know anything else. And that is so cool and quite a bit of responsibility.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to teach them who the real God is.
Yeah, and emulate that for them.
Yes, and walk my walk and teach them. Obviously, like the the first thing is the sooner that I can teach them who the real God is, the
less that burdens on
the less
you.
that burdens me, right? About being God to them. But also, I mean, some of the coolest moments are talking with June about these things.
Yeah.
And then I think one of my favorite things about being a mom, to wrap this up, is like learning from them too, the things they say in response to learning more about God
Yeah.
and stuff. I mean, you can just learn so much. We are called to have childlike faith, not because it is immature. That's not the sense. It's the trustworthiness that they have
it's
in
because
God.
it's without question.
Without question. And you really can only see that in kids.
Yeah.
And so watching that and being a part of that.
Yeah, that is cool.
I think my favorite thing about being a mom.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there as it's Mother's Day week heading in.
Okay, but I have a question for you as
Okay.
we wrap up. What is one of the things that you appreciate most about your mom? We have to shout out our moms here.
Yeah, shout out Debbie.
We're testing if they listen.
Yeah, we'll find out real quick, I guess. Or at least listen to the end, huh?
Yeah, that's true.
With my mom, so I talk to my mom probably almost every day. And my mom is I have two sisters. We are absolutely her world. Like everything revolves around one of us kids.
It
right,
shifts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it does shift. Right, wrong, or indifferent. But I talk to her every day, and me and her are pretty well alike about a lot of stuff. But even if I don't always take her advice on everything, she has an opinion, and it's from a good place, well thought out. Like she just genuinely cares.
She genuinely cares.
Like she's very like it's just us and that's it.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't know any different way, but the older I get, there is just more of an appreciation of like, she's the ultimate ride or die for all of us, and is
Yes.
thinking about how to help all of us at all times. Like to your point of like motherhood, not anything, like we're all grown, we're all married.
Yes.
But she still is constantly like trying to figure out how to help us.
Yes, she is. That's a good one.
What about you?
For my mom, it's kind of along the. Okay, I have a couple things, so I'm gonna break the rules. One,
You make me look bad now.
no, because yours is really good. My mom, and you can ask anybody who knows my mom. My mom is the best listener,
Okay.
and I've always appreciated that about her. But I think more so as I don't know, as I get older, I appreciate that about her. And then that this is just an example that's on my mind because she's still, to your point about like it never ends. They're always trying to make
That
our
was your
lives
point.
easier. Well, yeah, you just repeated it, I guess. Anyway, my mom is constantly picking up my slack, no questions asked. Like this week, I forgot the boys had early dismissal, and I did not send them with a sack lunch. Ginger for the win. She had to go.
BK.
Yeah. And just no questions asked.
Yeah.
And she's always been like that. Like I remember, I just flashback. I wasn't even thinking about this earlier, but I remember doing projects, and there was a handful of times, maybe less than that even, that I had something come up due when I was not ready for it, and she just like all-nighter with me, get it done.
You weren't a procrastinator?
No, I was, and
I was about to say, pretty much all of them ended up like that.
No, I was pretty on top of things, but there were a few things that I wasn't, and she just powered through with me, or would sit there and type it up for me as I was going through it. So, has always picked up my slack, no questions.
Moms are the best. That's
They are.
the theme of today.
Yes.
So it's Mother's Day week. If you have an opportunity to see your mom, I'm sure they'd love to see you.
Yes.
If you don't, I'm sure they'd love a card.
Yes.
And as we talked about, I think most women are at some way or another with a love language of gifts. Maybe think of that. Receiving gifts, right?
Go follow us on Instagram because I plan to do I already posted one little gift idea. I'm not going to spam everybody with gift ideas for mothers, but maybe we'll do a few more.
Yes.
Discuss_with us.
Yes, go look at that. We may put some other, not Mother's Day gifts things, but just some more Mother's Day stuff this week as we celebrate mothers all week.
Yes.
We are going to the lake, so I don't know how we're going to figure out how to record post. We will work that out and figure out what we're going to do after that. But biggest thing, tell your mom you love her. So now that we have unpacked motherhood, you go discuss.